China has been portrayed by some as a heaven for architects for its appetite to build super tall buildings. Home to almost half of the world's 100 tallest buildings, has banned the construction of super skyscrapers amid fears that the race to push skyward over the past 3 decades may have compromised building safety and led to an excessive office space. New buildings taller than 500 meters or 1,640 feet will no longer be approved, while towers exceeding 250 meters must be strictly limited, and structures taller than 100 meters must strictly match the scale and the fire rescue capacity of the locations, according to an order issued late on Tuesday by the National Development and Reform Commission, the country's top planning agency. The country is home to some of the world's highest buildings, including Shanghai Tower, which has 128 floors. Local reports also question the need for low-density cities to build skyscrapers, suggesting they were built for vanity and not practicality. There is already an existing ban on buildings taller than 500 meters. The announcement was mostly met with approval on Chinese social media site Weibo, with many commenting that the super-high skyscrapers were not needed, they're just gimmicky. Earlier this year, the country issued a ban on ugly architecture. China has restricted the construction of extremely tall skyscrapers in smaller cities as part of a crackdown on wasteful vanity projects by local governments. Without special approval, cities with populations of less than 3 million must not build skyscrapers taller than 150 meters, and cities with larger populations must not construct buildings higher than 250 meters, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Rural Development said on Tuesday. The measures go further than an existing ban on buildings of more than 500 meters. Officials who approve such projects in violation of the new rule will be held accountable for life, the ministry said, which would mean officials were subject to any future punishment decided to the breach of rules. China has some of the tallest buildings in the world, including the 632-meter Shanghai Tower and the 599.1-meter Ping An Finance Center in Shenzhen. Of the 10 completed buildings measuring above 500 meters around the world, half are found in mainland China. Among them are the planet's second tallest skyscraper, the twisting Shanghai Tower at 632 meters tall, and Shenzhen's Ping An Finance Center, which is 599 meters from base to tip. In the last 2 years, they've been joined by Beijing's CITIC Tower and the Tianjin CTF Finance Center, the world's 7th and 9th tallest buildings respectively. But the tide against rocketing skyscrapers has been turning for some time. So, why did China decide to impose restrictions on the height of buildings? The latest guidelines limiting the height of super-high buildings are part of a larger crackdown on vanity projects in the country. It also aims to reduce China's energy consumption. Many have argued that in low-density cities, massive skyscrapers are merely impractical vanity projects. The Chinese government's latest move was widely hailed by users on social media platform Weibo, according to BBC. This comes after several high-rise buildings reported accidents in recent years. Notably, in March, a fire broke out in a particularly tall residential building in the northern Chinese city of Shijiazhuang, The Guardian reported. Months later, a similar incident occurred in the city of Dalian. The rules are particularly pertinent as China is home to some of the tallest buildings in the world. These include the 128-story Shanghai Tower, the country's tallest building, as well as the 599.2-meter Ping An International Finance Center. Authorities were focused on ensuring the safety of these buildings. This summer, the regulator tightened rules for buildings taller than 100 meters. These buildings are required to have stringent anti-earthquake and firefighting capabilities. They also require adequate escape and rescue mechanisms. While China acknowledges that high-rise buildings promote more intensive use of land resources, it's increasingly concerned that local officials are blindly pursuing construction with little attention to practicality and safety. Earlier this year, a 356-meter, 71-story tower in downtown Shenzhen repeatedly shook, raising safety concerns. Investigations found the cause was a more than 50-meter-tall mast on top of the building that moved in the wind. Shortly after the incident, China imposed a nationwide ban in July on the construction of buildings exceeding 500 meters. The Shenzhen building reopened in September after the mast was dismantled. Local governments must also inspect existing super-tall buildings, conducting checks on their foundation, structure, power, water, and gas supply, the materials used, the resistance to earthquakes, and protection from fire, the ministry said. Cities should also strictly control the construction of high-rise buildings in ecologically sensitive areas and on urban ventilation corridors, it said. However, among these incredible structures are also an increasing number of unfinished super-tall skyscrapers, including the 597-meter Golden Finance 117 in Tianjin. The Chinese government has reportedly become concerned that some super tall projects are being rushed into construction to put cities on the map without full consideration for wider market demands. Earlier this year, a 356-meter skyscraper in downtown Shenzhen caught the world's attention when it began wobbling, causing an evacuation of the area. What do the new rules say? In a joint statement issued on Tuesday, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Rural Development and the Ministry of Emergency Management said cities with populations of less than 3 million people will be restricted from building skyscrapers taller than 150 meters. As per the country's strict new rules, skyscrapers taller than 150 meters will be strictly limited, and those higher than 250 meters will be banned for cities with a population of fewer than 3 million. In cities with over 3 million people, authorities have also decided to limit structures taller than 250 meters. According to a statement issued jointly by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Rural Development and the Ministry of Emergency Management, builders will require special exemptions to construct skyscrapers higher than 150 meters in a city with an urban population of less than 3 million. However, buildings higher than 250 meters will not be permitted under any circumstances. The latest statement was jointly issued in the last few days by China's Ministry of Housing and Urban Rural Development and Ministry of Emergency Management, a cabinet-level executive department responsible for emergency management and work safety. Similar rules apply in cities with an urban population of over 3 million. Special permission may be granted to construct buildings taller than 250 meters, but with a hard ban on skyscrapers over 500 meters. Those who violate these new rules will be held to lifelong accountability. The new rules are about more than aesthetics. They call for more standardized building application, review, and approval processes, as well as more stringent quality controls at the early stages of projects. Given the recent wobbling of a 980-foot tower in Shenzhen, the collapse of an occupied condo tower near Miami, and China's own experience with poor materials and weak structures known as tofu dregs buildings, the emphasis on safety is welcome. According to the state-run Global Times, regulators last year issued a document clarifying how to further strengthen the management of architecture in Chinese cities. They concluded large buildings that had a strange style were a waste of resources. Architecture websites such as Archi.com encouraged citizens to spot curious designs around the country and vote for a Hall of Shame listing of China's top 10 ugliest buildings. The organizer of the competition said the purpose of the vote was to provoke thinking about the beauty of and ugliness of architecture and promote architects' social responsibility. But despite the rules, this may not be the end of the skyscrapers in China. Now it's time to know if the rules are absolute or it will allow something special.